1923. The last steam train through the highest Alpine pass in Europe is making its final journey tonight. After 34 years, the old route is closing forever. And tonight, the man who has driven it for 31 of those years is at the control one last time. He's not just saying goodbye to the train tonight, he's saying goodbye to something else entirely. Settle in, let the snow fall softly against cold alpine glass. Let the engine breathe its steady rhythm beneath you, and let the mountains carry you somewhere quieter than grief, somewhere older than goodbye. Andermatt Station, 9:47 in the evening. Snow falling steadily beyond the platform roof, each flake landing without sound on cold stone, on empty wooden benches, on the shoulders of the few passengers who had come specifically for this, the last run. Word had spread quietly through the valley towns over the past week, not announced officially. The railway company had said nothing publicly about the closure, but mountain communities knew things that were never said aloud, and so they had come. An elderly couple from Zurich, married here in 1891, their honeymoon journey on this exact route. A young woman with a careful notebook and careful eyes, a retired school teacher who had written this every Christmas for 20 years without missing once. Quiet people, people who understood that certain endings deserved witnesses. Outside the platform, Henrik stood beside the engine, one hand resting on the warm metal of the boiler casing. Warm, always warm. Even in the deepest alpine winter, the boiler ran hot enough to feel through a wool glove. That hand had rested here 10,000 times, perhaps more. 31 years of departures, of arrivals, of the particular satisfaction of a machine doing exactly what it was built to do across every kind of weather these mountains could produce. 62 years old now, hair completely white, a face weathered in the particular way of men who spend decades looking at mountains through glass in every season and every light. The station master appeared at his shoulder, too young to remember the first run. Ready when you are. A single nod. No words needed. Back to the driver's cabin, the heavy door closing behind. Inside, warm and familiar, and smelling of coal smoke and machine oil and something else, something that had no proper name. The particular smell of 31 years of the same journey accumulated in wood and metal and air. The driver's seat, worn smooth in exactly the right places, hands finding the controls automatically, the throttle, the brake, the pressure gauge glowing softly in the cabin lamplight, everything exactly where it had always been. Through the forward window, the snow fell steadily in the engine lamp beam, the track disappearing into white darkness ahead, steam rising past the glass, pressure building. One tap on the gauge. The engine had never failed, not once, in 31 years. One hand found the whistle cord automatically, without looking, the sound rolling out across the quiet station. across the snow covered platform into the Alpine night, and the last steam train through the Swiss Alps began to move, the engine finding its rhythm, station sliding past the forward window, handful of the passengers on the platform watching, some raising their hands, eyes forward on the track, one hand raised briefly in return. Then the station lights were gone, only darkness and snow, and the engine lamp cutting through both, the rhythm settling into something steady and deeply familiar, the sound that had accompanied sleep more times than could be counted, in railway hotels, in station waiting rooms, in this very cabin on long summer afternoons, waiting for the return journey, the engine's rhythm, more constant across these years than almost anything else. A hand reached forward to adjust the throttle, something in the wood, the cabin lamp raised closer. Anna Strauss, forgotten entirely until this moment, carved in 1902, their 10th wedding anniversary. Anna had ridden in the cabin that day as a special arrangement, sat in the small fold down seat for the entire Alpine crossing, watching the mountains with that particular expression she always had, as though the world was constantly surprising her with its own beauty, as though she had never quite gotten used to it and never wanted to. Those initials carved quietly that evening after she had gone back to the passenger carriage while the train was climbing the first gradient, a small permanent thing in the wood, snow falling in the engine lamp beam, hands steady on the throttle. The gradient began 20 minutes outside Andermatt, the track curving upward into the first proper mountain section, the engine working harder now, the rhythm slightly slower, more deliberate, the sound of a machine taking something seriously. Outside the windows, the valley floor was gone, rock faces rising close on both sides now, and above them, through breaks in the cloud, stars, alpine stars at this altitude, not points of light, fields of light, layers of light. That sky had been there 10,000 times before, and still the eyes moved upward through the upper section of the forward window, and I had loved those stars above the Alpine pass more than almost anything. Face pressed to the carriage window on clear nights, watching them appear as the curtain climbed about the cloud line. They looked closer up there. The first tunnel approached, a black mouth in the rock face ahead, one hand on the whistle cord, the sound bouncing off rock walls. Then the tunnel swallowed everything, the engine sound changing immediately, filling the cabin, filling the tunnel, coal smoke denser in the confined space, steam pressing against the tunnel ceiling above. 30 seconds of roaring in close darkness, the world opening back up like a hell breath finally released, the rhythm settling again, the way the tunnels compressed made the world on the other side feel like a gift each time. A knock at the cabin door, the young woman with the notebook, dark coat still dusted with snow from the platform, both hands holding something carefully, a cup, steam rising from it. The door opened. I thought you might want this. voice slightly nervous. The others asked me to bring it, strong by the smell of it, accepted without speaking. Snow falling in the engine lamp beam, the track curving upward into darkness. My grandmother used to talk about this train, said quietly, almost to herself. She rode it every year when she was young. She called it a pause, searching memory for the right words. She called it the train that knew the mountains from the inside. A long moment, eyes on the track. She was right. The young woman nodded, a brief smile, then back to her carriage. The door closed. Tea in one hand, other hand steady on the throttle. A slow sip of tea, warmth moving through the chest. The Alps rising on every side now, enormous and patient and completely permanent. The tradition of this route had begun with the very first run in 1889. At the highest point of the crossing, 3,400 meters above sea level, the train stopped. Not for mechanical reasons, not for schedule requirements, simply because someone on that first journey had decided the highest point deserved acknowledgement, and every driver since had honored it. 2 minutes at the top of the world. The engine breathing out, the cabin door opened, one step out into the small exterior platform between the engine and the first carriage. The cold arrived immediately, the particular cold of high altitude in winter, honest rather than cruel, snow falling straight down in completely still air, no wind at this elevation, and mountains rising in every direction into a sky beginning to clear above. The silence here was extraordinary, not the silence of absence, the silence of presence. Peaks appearing and disappearing through the drifting cloud, ancient rock under ancient snow, perhaps 300 times across 31 years, the never once standing here alone, and are always in carriage, one hand moving into the coat pocket, finding something else entirely. An envelope, small, cream colored, a name on the front, in handwriting recognized so immediately and completely that the chest tightened before the mind had fully caught up with what the eyes were seeing. Anna's handwriting, standing completely still, snow falling straight down around the platform, the mountains waiting, the envelope opened carefully, one folded sheet inside. Understood immediately without being told, kept by their daughter, given to the railway company, with instructions for the specific night, the last one. Not a long letter, and I had never used more words than necessary. Heinrich, you will want to stop at the top as you always do, and you will stand outside and feel guilty for all the times you thought about the train when you should have been thinking about me. I always knew where your heart was. It was in the same place mine was, up here, in these ridiculous beautiful mountains, on this ridiculous beautiful train. Drive her home one last time. I will be watching from somewhere with a better view than the carriage window. All my love. 3,400 meters above sea level. The letter folded carefully, put back in the pocket, next to the heart. One more moment looking at the mountains, then back into the cabin. back into the driver's seat, hands finding the controls. The last steam train through the Swiss Alps began its descent. The mountains fell away gradually on both sides, the track winding downward through sleeping Alpine villages, lights in windows passing slowly, dogs lifting their heads briefly at the sound of the engine. Something almost gentle about it, the grief still present, understood now without resistance, but changed shape tonight, become something carried differently, the way a well packed bag sits properly on the back. Tomorrow the engine would be retired to a museum, a position offered on the new electric line, not yet decided. Perhaps something new was needed now, something that didn't carry quite so many memories in every grain of the woodwork, or perhaps the memories were exactly the point, because the memories were in the wood and the wood was still moving. The final valley appeared ahead, terminal station lights visible in the distance, small and warm and steady, like a lamp left on the someone's expected home. In the carriages behind the passengers were sleeping, the young woman with the notebook, the retired school teacher, chin resting on his chest, all of them carried through the last alpine darkness, the mountains standing in the darkness every side, unchanged by 34 years of trains passing through their valleys, unchanged by grief, unchanged by love, as they had always been, as they would always be. Let the engine breathe for you now, ancient and patient permanent, no need to arrive anywhere tonight, already exactly where you need to be, moving gently through the dark, carried by something that knows the way, something that has always known the way. Close your eyes like the passengers in the warm carriages. Let the rhythm carry you now.